So determined. That's wonderful. Srimad Bhagvatam is one of the pillars of our devotional service, along with our chanting. We get to hear from so many great souls, Srila Prabhupada's purports, and all the histories of these enlightened souls and pastimes of the Lord. Most people are waking up, drinking coffee, listening to a radio, a bunch of nonsense, or not a very enlightened lifestyle, unfortunately. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. So this morning we're reading from the beautiful Srimad Bhagvatam, Canto 7, Chapter 9, Text 27. Jaya Radha Madhava Radhika Gopi Janabalava Srivaradadi Yasodanandana Bejodhanara Yamuna Tira Anachari Jaya Radha Madhava Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Nitai Gaur Hari Bol, Hari Bol, Hari Bol, Nitai Gaur Hari Bol, Jaya Prabhupada, 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 Jaya Prabhupada. Jai Om Vishnupad Paramahansa Parvajakacharya Ashtatir Satis Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. Jai Om Vishnupad Paramahansa Parvajakacharya Ashtatir Satis Divine Grace Srila Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. Ananta Kirti Vaishnavrinda Ki Jai. Namacharya Srila Hardas Thakur Ki Jai. Prem Sri Kaho Sri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Sri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasari Gaur Bhakta Vrinda Ki Jai. Sri Sri Radha Krishna Gopinath Shamakunda Radha Kunda Giri Govardhan Ki Jai. Sri Vrindavan Dham Ki Jai. Navadvip Dham Ki Jai. Yamuna Maya Ki Jai. Ki Jai. Bhakti Devi Ki Jai. Shrimad Tulsi Devi Ki Jai. Amaveda Bhakta Vrinda Ki Jai. All glories to the assembled devotees, all glories to the assembled devotees, all glories to the assembled devotees, all glories to Sri Guru and Sri Gauranga, all glories to Sri Prabhupada. So, Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya, Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya, Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Srimad Bhagvatam, Canto 7, Chapter 9, Text 27. Someone want to do the Sanskrit?
Yes, Mataji. Hare Krishna.
Sanskrit scholar?
No, Mataji, I try. Naisha paravaramattir nanusya jantorya yathat atmasurudo surudo jagat statapi sansevaya surata rorivate prasadaha seva nurupa mudayona paravaratvam. Hare Krishna.
Thank you. Synonyms: na, not; asa, this; para, avara, of higher or lower; mati, such discrimination; avat, of your lordship; nanu, indeed; siyat, there can be; janta, of ordinary living entities; yata, as; atma sruta, of one who is the friend; jagata, of the whole material world; tatapi, but still there is such a demonstration of intimacy or difference; sameshwarya, according to the degree of service rendered by the devotee; sarataro iva, like that of the desire tree in Vaikuntha, which offers fruits according to the desire of the devotee; te, your; prasada, benediction or blessing; seva, anurupam, according to the category of service one renders to the Lord; upatya, manifestation; na, not; para avataram, discrimination due to higher or lower levels. Translation: unlike an ordinary living entity, my Lord, you do not discriminate between friends and enemies, the favorable and the unfavorable, because for you there is no conception of higher or lower. Nonetheless, you offer your benedictions according to the level of one's service, exactly as a desire tree delivers fruit according to one's desires and makes no distinction between the lower and the higher. Purport by His Divine Grace, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami. Jai Shri Prabhupada. In the Bhagavad Gita 4:11, the Lord clearly says, Yata mam prabhadyante tam stataiva prajam naham. As one surrenders to me, I reward him accordingly. As stated by Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, Jivara Sarupaya Krishna Nitya Das, every living being is an eternal servant of Krishna. According to the service the living entity renders, he automatically receives benedictions from Krishna, who does not make distinction, thinking, here is a person in an intimate relationship with me, and here's a person I dislike. Krishna advises everyone to surrender to him. Sarva dharma pariksha jyamam ekam saranam praja. According to one's relationship with the Supreme Lord is in proportion to that surrender and the service one renders unto the Lord. Thus, throughout the entire world, the higher or lower positions of the living entities are selected by the living entities themselves. If one is inclined to dictate that the Lord grants something, one receives benedictions according to that desire, to his desires. If one wants to be elevated to the higher planetary system, the heavenly planets, he can be promoted to that place he desires. And if he wants to remain a hog or a pig on earth, the Lord fulfills that desire also. Therefore, one's position is determined by one's desires. The Lord is not responsible for the higher or lower grades of our existence. This is further explained quite definitely in the Bhagavad Gita 9:25 by the Lord himself. Some people want to be promoted to the heavenly planets, some want to be promoted to Pitriloka, and some want to remain on earth. But if one is interested in returning home back to Godhead, he can be promoted there also. According to the demands of a particular devotee, he receives the result by the grace of the Lord. The Lord does not discriminate, thinking, here is a person favorable to me, and here's a person who is not favorable. Rather, he fulfills the desires of everyone. Therefore, the Shastra enjoins whether one is without desire, the condition of the devotees, or is desirous of all fruitive results, or is after liberation, one should, with all efforts, try to worship the Supreme Personality of Godhead for complete perfection, culminating in Krishna consciousness. Bhagvatam 2:3-10. According to one's position, whether as a devotee, a karmi, or a gyani, whatever one wants, one can get if one fully engages in the service of the Lord. Om Agyana Timirandasya Gananjana Salakaya Chaksurumilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. We're born in the darkness of ignorance, but our spiritual masters kindly opening our eyes with the torchlight of knowledge. So we offer our most humble and respectful obeisances unto the lotus feet of such spiritual masters. I actually was going to go on to the next verse because it is a somewhat famous verse. So I think I'll just read it, if you don't mind. Prahlad is speaking to the Lord. My dear Lord, O Supreme Personality of Godhead, because of my association with material desires, one after another, I was gradually falling into a blind well full of snakes, following the general populace. But your servant Nardamuna kindly accepted me as his disciple and instructed me how to achieve this transcendental position. Therefore, my first duty is to serve him. How could I leave his service? Purport. As will be seen in later verses, even though Prahlad Maharaj was directly offered all the benedictions he might have desired, he refused to accept such offerings from the Supreme Personality of Godhead. On the contrary, he asked the Lord to engage him in the service of his servant Nardamuni. This is a symptom of a pure devotee. One should serve the spiritual master first. It is not that one should bypass the spiritual master and desire to serve the Supreme Lord. This is not the principle for a Vaishnava. Narottam Das Thakur says, Tejikarna Seva Bhakta Sane Vase, Janma Janma Haya E Avilase. One should not be anxious to offer direct service to the Lord. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu advised that one become the servant of the servant of the servant of the Lord. Gopi Bhartapada Kamale Das Dasana Das. This is the process of approaching the Supreme Lord. The first service should be rendered to the spiritual master so that by his mercy one can approach the Supreme Personality of Godhead to render service. While teaching Rupa Goswami, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu said, Guru Krishna Paya Prasada Paya Bhakti Lata Bij. One can achieve the seed of devotional service by the mercy of the Guru, the spiritual master, and then by the mercy of Krishna. This is the secret of success. First, one should try to please the spiritual master, and then one should attempt to please the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur also states, Yasa Prasada Bhagavat Prasada. One should not attempt to please the Supreme Personality of Godhead by concoction. One must first be prepared to serve the spiritual master. When one is qualified, he is automatically offered the platform of direct service to the Lord. Therefore, Prahlad Maharaj proposed that he engaged in the service of Narada Muni. He never proposed that he engaged directly in the service of the Lord. This is the right conclusion. Therefore, he said, Ham katam yu rishi tatva pritya sevam. How can I give up the service of my spiritual master, who has favored me in such a way that I am now able to see you face to face? Prahlad Maharaj prayed to the Lord he might continue to engage in the service of his spiritual master, Narada Muni. It's actually quite beautiful. There's a website that you can listen to classes given on each verse, which I didn't know about, but someone gave it to me yesterday. And so I listened to Prabhupada's class from Mayapur on this first verse, 7:9:27. And Prabhupada was, Prabhupada was preaching to a certain audience. And that was where he spoke from, the platform from which he spoke. And in this one class, he said that Krishna is not favorable to anyone, but for someone who approaches him with full surrender, he of course treats him in such a way that the person is taken care of fully by the Lord. And he was saying that so someone may be a devotee and he may retire to Vrindavan and he may have made so much money in his life. But what is he doing? Instead of engaging that money in Krishna's service, he is giving all of the money to his family. Prabhupada says crores of rupees he's giving to his family. And he's telling his wife or family to send him like 200 rupees every month for his service in Vrindavan. So Prabhupada says that if you approach Krishna like that, he's also going to reciprocate with 200 rupees worth of himself. It's so different from our mentality. I mean, at first, when we first started, I must say Krishna made an amazing arrangement for the devotees and for Srila Prabhupada. Many of us were involved in this movement in America that was going on, all over the world, actually, this hippie movement. The young people in America were facing the Vietnam War, and thousands of them were going and just being killed in ruthless, useless battles on very different terrain than the US. The Vietnamese were fighting in their own terrain, and the Americans had no idea how to deal with the quicksand and the mosquitoes and the malaria. And it was terrible, useless battle. So all these young people were going in a certain direction, and the feeling, the way of life amongst so many of the young people in the US and all over the world was, we don't want any part of this. We want to live simple, not just killing ourselves, 9-to-5 jobs to have a fancy house with 2 cars so that we can watch the football game on Sunday and drink beer. They were looking for something higher, something peaceful, where there was peace and love. So they were living a certain lifestyle of renunciation, giving up everything. I mean, really, just walking away from the Cadillac and sports car and lifestyle and just looking for something higher. Unfortunately, there was not much good association that could raise them higher, but somehow or other Prabhupada came right at that time. It was just perfect timing. And these young people were already renounced. They had already given up so many material things and ways of life. So Prabhupada found this whole group of young people that were just ready to help him spread love of God and peace. And they fit right in. They moved right into the temple, lived in an ashram with nothing. I mean, really nothing. For years, I had a box about 2 feet by 2 feet, and everything I owned was in that box. I had nothing, no bank account, nothing, no car, seemingly no stability. But somehow or other, that gave me the opportunity to fully engage, like this. And like Prabhupada was saying in his purport on this verse from the class that I read, if you give 2% to Krishna, then he reciprocates. He says that as they surrender to me, I reward them accordingly. So if we're giving 2% to Krishna, 200 rupees to Krishna, then he's going to reciprocate with us. But somehow or other, by the grace of Krishna, we got into a situation where we had the fortune to give 100%. It was a mission given by such a great soul who was on a mission to save the world and raise it to a higher platform. And so we were able to give basically somewhat 100%. And because it was so wonderful, a new way of life, a pure way of life, understand that these young people were doing anything, that this hippie movement, any kind of intoxication, sex with anybody at any time, just a wayward way of life. Not to say that everyone who was in that followed all those things, but so here they are in a temple with a structure, getting up at 4 in the morning or 3 in the morning, going into the temple chanting, knowing that the chanting is going to give you love of God, peace of mind, help the world, just like lighting a fire under you. And nobody's minded in those days that we were eating off of a piece of wax paper, because it was prasadam and we were eating nicely. And no one minded that we didn't have our own pairs of shoes. We just put on whatever shoes there were in the box and out on Sankirtan, chanting on the streets, blissfully, because Krishna was reciprocating with us. We were surrendering, Krishna was reciprocating, and you could feel it. So that's how it happened. Krishna gave us a situation, he gave us Prabhupada, and we ran behind Srila Prabhupada. Just amazing. I remember some years ago, probably 7, 8 years ago, there was this really quiet, humble Indian man. And he was always serving the prasadam, never spoke to anyone, just super, super shy, quiet guy. And he was probably about 55, maybe 50. And finally, one day, after months and months, I asked him, so who are you? What do you, how is it that you're here? And he said, well, my story is, and I can't remember it exactly, and neither do I remember his name. He came with his family to America on some type of visa. And he was working, his family was here, they had a house. He was buying a house, he was buying a car, everything was going well. And then something happened. Someone made a mistake on his visa. he was renewing his visa and they made a mistake. And instead of it saying that he was allowed to work, it said that he was not allowed to work. And then he got dismissed from his job because his visa said he was not allowed to work anymore. And then he couldn't pay for his house. And finally, his family went back to India and left him here. And he stayed and tried to get this visa problem fixed and tried. And then the house, he had to give up the house. So he was living in his car. And he was still trying to fix this problem so he could bring his family back and start working again, and nothing was working. And he finally had to, the car was repossessed. So he was living on the street with this few. He had also a rental unit, and that got repossessed, and all of his stuff, thousands of dollars worth of things and computer, everything was repossessed. The car was repossessed and he was on the street. And finally, someone told him he could get a meal. He called his nephew. And his nephew said, there is a place called New Vrindavan. I'm sure they'll give you shelter. So he ended up, I think his nephew sent him like a bus ticket or something. He ended up coming to New Vrindavan and moving into the ashram. And he finally got food to eat and a roof over his head. And he did service here for, I believe it was several years. And then as far as I remember, something happened with his visa. Anyway, he ended up going back to his family in India, but his family kind of disowned him. Anyway, it was an interesting situation. But for him, it gave him, a lot of mercy. It gave him Krishna's service that he probably never would have had. Oh, I know what it was. He came here once with his family, like so many thousands of people. They come here once, they're coming to the Holy Dham. And then his nephew reminded him about New Vrindavan. Anyway, I thought it was interesting. So let's see here. So in the Nectar of Devotion, it talks about the eligibility of the candidate for accepting devotional service. One second. So the spiritual master in this second verse, Prahlad is saying, well, my dear Lord, I want to serve my spiritual master. How can I give up his association? He's given me this opportunity to serve you. And because of that, I'm seeing you face to face. So our good fortune, Prabhupada said, Krishna gives the spiritual master. He gives us the opportunity to have the association of a spiritual master. And the spiritual master gives us Krishna. I mean, without Srila Prabhupada's endeavor and the endeavor of these great souls that have had Prabhupada's association, many of them who have had Prabhupada's association, and some of them who have not. They've had Prabhupada's association through the books, through ISKCON, through a spiritual master within ISKCON. But there's this whole movement of devotees traveling all over the world and preaching and distributing books. Such a special time. Such a special time. It's like this movement of Lord Chaitanya is ignited, and this branch of devotional service is just spreading like wildfire. It's just touching the hearts of so many people. The other day, now here we are in Moundsville. Moundsville, if you've ever been through Moundsville, West Virginia, it consists of one small main street that has, there's no like big department store. It is all just these little tiny independent businesses. Someone selling used wash machines, someone selling used guitars and musical instruments, fabric, a little drugstore. It's nothing. So, but every year they have a parade, a Christmas parade. And, it's not even Thanksgiving, but they're having a Christmas parade. So New Vrindavan decided to go. And this was the first time they went. I don't know why. But we had, there was one street, 2nd Avenue, that goes into that main little street that I was talking about. So we had a float that consisted of a SUV. Someone wrapped a bunch of Christmas packages, just empty boxes with Christmas paper, and stacked them all on top of the car. I don't know how they secured them, but they did. Put a wreath on the back, and the car has the ISKCON logo from New Vrindavan. And we had 1,500 cookies, which I thought was a lot. And hardly anyone showed up. There was like 5 people in the kirtan and 3 people passing out cookies. Like nobody came. None of the devotees came. So I thought, oh, well, that's okay. Prabhupada told me to do outreach, so I felt satisfied. So the parade started, and we're going forward, going to this little tiny main street in Moundsville, West Virginia, that no one's ever heard of. And, the people in back are from some Methodist church, and they're doing Christmas carols, and the bank is there. And, no big fancy floats, just kind of simple floats. And ours was probably the most simple. And then we turned the corner on the main street. There were thousands and thousands and thousands of people. I couldn't believe it. We could have had 50 devotees, and we could have passed out probably 7,000 cookies, which I hope we do next year, because on the cookie bag, it was a free pass, half price pass to the palace. And we were smiling and giving all the cookies. There were so many kids there that I had bags, because the other floats throw candy off. The kids collect candy. Anyway, it was like, wow. So many ways to connect with people about Krishna consciousness. And in the long run, if we make the local community love us and respect us, then if anything ever happened with the economy, we would be surrounded by all kinds of friends that we could work with to help everyone. Anyway, I thought it was just wonderful. And I'm sure every little town has a parade that anyone can get into. And Prabhupada told us many years ago that we could distribute, we could offer to the deities sugar candy, like the lollipops that they make, those little tiny lollipops, and distribute them as Mahaprasada. So if someone has the opportunity to get into some type of parade like that, why not? It's a good way. And we distributed some books, but not, parade was going too fast. It was kind of ridiculous. So in this Nectar of Devotion, the eligibility of the candidate for accepting devotional service, on account of his association with Mahatmas, are great souls 100% engaged in the devotional service of the Lord. one may attain a little bit of attraction for Krishna, but at the same time, one may remain very much attached to fruitive activities and material sense enjoyment, and not be prepared to undergo the different types of renunciation. Such a person, if he has unflinching attraction to Krishna, becomes an eligible candidate for discharging devotional service. This attraction for Krishna consciousness and association of pure devotees is a sign of great fortune. It is confirmed by Lord Chaitanya that only the fortunate person, by the mercy of both a bona fide spiritual master and Krishna, will get the seed of devotional service. In this connection, Lord Krishna says in the Srimad Bhagvatam, 11th canto, 12th chapter, verse 8, my dear Uddhava, only by exceptional fortune does someone become attracted to me. Even if one is not completely detached from fruitive activities or is not completely attached to devotional service, such service is quickly effective. I don't know about everybody else, but we seem to be so covered over, and we have such an opportunity. And we could just give up everything and just do just pure devotional service. I'm preaching to myself here. It's such an opportunity. And sometimes I wonder why I don't seem as Krishna conscious as I was years ago. And here's my answer. Because I'm only giving 200 rupees to Krishna. And Krishna's only giving 200 rupees to me. So I have to, as they say in the material world, up my game. I have to become more serious. I do try, though. So when Srila Prabhupada first started preaching in the West, he was preaching to the young people that had no apparent connection with the Vedic system, right? Who knows what America knows about the Vedic system? Nobody. When people come to the palace, I tell them, Krishna is our name for God. Just like in the West, you have your Christians, but who are the Christians? Are they the Lutherans, the Pentecostals? Are they the Catholics? Are they the Baptists? Who are the Christians? So many branches of Christians, according to whose vision they're following. So I say ours is like that. You can say Hindu, but who's Hindu? Our branch of the Vedic knowledge, or what they would consider Hinduism, comes in this particular line with this particular vision. And Srila Prabhupada brought that angle of vision here to the West. So they're able to understand the connection. And I just tell them, my father was from an Italian family. His name was Mario, Frank, Frederick, Ferdinand, Patrick, Nicotera. I said, if my father, simple businessman, can have all these names, God can have many names. So then I say, Krishna is our name for God. Anyway, it sets things off on a good, familiar platform. So when he started preaching, people didn't know about the Vedic system. So what is that saying? When in France or when in Spain, do as the Spanish, when in, where you are is where you're dealing with the people with a certain mentality. So in the West, they're almost all Christians. So we want to bridge a gap to let them know that we appreciate their service to the Lord and totally agree with it. No, this is just, sorry, not everyone may hold my opinion, but this is just my opinion. And then it opens the door of similar thoughts, similar aspirations to love God. And I quote the Bible often, do unto others as you'd have them do unto you. This is the law of karma. Whatever pain you give to someone, you get back. Anyway, it opens the door to preaching in the West for me. And Prabhupada used to do that too. Sometimes he would quote the Bible, but he was imparting the Vedic system, devotional service, and he imparted the knowledge really carefully. He gave basic moral standards. You have to deal with the group that you're dealing with. Look at what happened with, was it Magrari the hunter? Narada Muni was dealing with him. Who was the one that was, he told them to chant Mara, 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 which is death, means death. And if you chant it enough, you start saying Rama, 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 Rama. So if we're following the way Prabhupada did things, we can use our good intelligence. And that's what he did. He gave the Vedas, but he gave basic moral standards to uplift them, to change their lifestyle to a place where they could gradually make advancement. He didn't just disregard them because they were such low lives. He said, so what, Krishna sent me 10th class men. So if we're in a situation where we're with scholars, then we go that way. If we're in a place, if Krishna sends us to a place where we're dealing with 10th class men, we don't give up and say, oh, this is useless. We do what Prabhupada did. We try and uplift them. So he gave these young people that had come to him a basic moral standard, which they didn't have. They may have been taught that in their youth from their parents from the Christian background, which is there. But the way of the youth often is to, test things out to see, especially if they don't get along with their parents, then they may not believe what their parents say. Oh, you should do this and you should do it that way. They may not want to go that way if they don't like their parents. So Prabhupada set a base of moral standards, cleanliness, civilized life. He didn't just come in and start preaching only the higher. He was living with these young people, these dirty, stinky young people that didn't know anything, didn't know how to take a bath, how to be clean, how to eat, how to cook, how to stop taking intoxication. They didn't know any. Then he was living with them. Look, in the beginning, he was living with that drugged out hippie guy who took some LSD and almost attacked Srila Prabhupada, was just a madman. Amazing. And Krishna let it happen. Prabhupada could have left. Okay, I give up. This is ridiculous. I'm living with this crazy person, and this dirty hippie group is all I got. They smell bad. I'm going back to Vrindavan. Amazing that Prabhupada stayed. Amazing. He was so determined. Once he got a foothold, he was doing what Prahlad Maharaj just said. He's your servant Narada Muni kindly accepted me as his disciple. Prabhupada was so grateful and loved Bhaktisiddhanta Maharaj and respected him and took the mission, the instruction that Bhaktisiddhanta Maharaj gave him, a simple instruction. go to the West and preach in English. Prahlad Maharaj says he kindly accepted me as his disciple and instructed me how to achieve this transcendental position. Therefore, my duty is to serve him. How could I leave his service? And Prabhupada, throughout his time with us, was saying that you have been sent by my spiritual master to help me. But it didn't happen the way he thought it would happen. When he first got the instruction, apparently he tried different ways to make money so he could come to the West and do what Bhaktisiddhanta Maharaj, good idea, do what my spiritual master said. I'll do it like this. Krishna didn't let it happen. Prabhupada was so poor, he was hungry sometimes. Did he give up? No. He didn't say, well, Krishna's not giving me this, so I must not, I'm not doing it right. Or I give up. I'm just going to go home, live with my family, take care of the grandchildren, play checkers, play with the dog. No, Prabhupada was so determined. He goes to the West with nothing, $7 in rupees, and lives with what we would consider deplorable people, really, is what we would consider them. And he lives with them. But what was their qualification? I'll tell you, their qualification was surrender. They surrendered to Prabhupada. And he did what Krishna's saying. He gave them according to their surrender. The more they surrendered, okay, Swamiji will help you. Okay, you want us to go to London or go open a town? Okay, we're going to go to London. Okay, we're going to go open New Vrindavan. Want a farm? Okay, we're going to go out to nowhere land, in the middle of nowhere, up in an old 100-year-old house with no heat, basically, and only a well that's freezing. And we're going to start a farm community. And here we are, 50 years later, with New Vrindavan. Amazing. That pioneer, just surrender. Again, I'm preaching to myself, just surrender. And, look at the story of St. Francis. It's even in the Christian tradition. Jesus was a beggar. His disciples, he took them from different places, different homes even. Just give up what you're doing. Leave your family and come with me, follow me. He didn't say stay there in your house and think of me sometimes. His disciples, they gave up everything and followed him. And they were living off of begging. St. Francis, he was from a well-to-do family in Assisi. His father was a cloth merchant. He went to war, the Crusades. He was a warrior. And he got such realization from his trip in the war. When he came back, he had an epiphany with the deity, you might say, of Jesus in the church. And he was told to resurrect this old, broken down church. And so what did he do? He gave up the wealthy lifestyle and became a beggar, living with nothing, basically. And all the poor people became his disciples because the church didn't treat them fairly. The church was just, kind of bigoted. The priest lived a somewhat wealthy lifestyle with fancy clothes and everything. And he was a vegetarian. And he'd help the poor and the lepers. Amazing. So anyway, so we have this opportunity. And according to our desires and our vision and our realizations and where we're at spiritually, we go forward. This book and these verses and classes are sometimes like when you have jaundice. The cure is like sugar cane, sugar candy, sugar cane juice, but it's bitter. So sometimes we hear these things and we go, oh, give up everything, give it all to Krishna somehow. You know, we don't always understand. We don't always know if we're doing the right thing or how to do it. But we have the example of so many people that went before us and are still with us. Some of these devotees still live a very renounced life with whatever Krishna gives them. They're not out, well, they're not out making money. They're not, I mean, I guess everyone has to think about money, but not to the extent that many of us think about money. How to get more, what to do, what kind of work we can do. Some are really just dependent on Krishna. And that's a good spot to be in. Well, we have Bhaktivinoda Thakur. He was a magistrate. I don't know what he did when he retired, how he lived his life. I know he had the little place in, I think it was Godrum Dweep, and he wrote, but even during his life, he did so much service. His schedule was such that he would stay up half the night writing, and I'm sure reading. Anyway, we can only do the best we can. We have limited time. We don't know when our last breath is, when the last situation, when it's going to be, today, tomorrow. So we do the best we can, and then we start from where we're leaving off. All right, let's see, 1 second here. Nectar of devotion. In the present condition, we do not know how Krishna will be pleased, but we know from the Shastras. We can know also from the direction of the spiritual master how Krishna will be pleased. Yasya prasada bhagavat prasada. So Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur says, you have to follow the direction of the spiritual master. He's guiding as a leader. And if he's pleased, that means Krishna is pleased. Yasya prasada bhagavat prasada. Yes, we seem to be quite a distance away from Krishna. We're trying to make our way there. And our direction, our guiding light, our footpath is the instructions and direction of the spiritual master. So we take that instruction as our life and soul and go forward and do the best we can. There was one more verse, 6:521. From this is quoting from Prabhupada. From this verse, we can understand the meaning of initiation and the duties of a disciple and spiritual master. The spiritual master never instructs his disciple, take a mantra for me, pay me some money, and by practicing this yoga system, you will become very expert in materialistic life. This is not the duty of a spiritual master. Rather, the spiritual master teaches the disciple how to give up materialistic life. And the disciple's duty is to assimilate his instructions and ultimately follow the path back home, back to Godhead, from whence no one returns to this material world. Well, very beautiful. I'm honored to be able to read these literatures. And my apologies for my limited vision. All right, I think I'm finished with my rambling. Is everyone asleep?
Hare Krishna Mataji, this is Geeta. Thank you very, very much for such an inspiring class in the early mornings. Some new learnings as well for me. Thank you, Mataji. Hare Krishna.
You're welcome. Thank you for attending. I'm fortunate to attend also. Okay.
Hare Krishna Mataji, Dandavat Pranam. Thank you so much for this nectarine class, and you explained very nicely about the who can be a devotee, like what are the qualities, not qualification, qualification of being a devotee. So thank you so much for explaining that. And Geeta Mataji was there in New Vrindavan. She visited for the senior group we brought from Maryland.
Oh, no.
Yeah. So she and one of other, Surender Prabhu, he's not today, he's traveling, so he's not joining today, but they both join regularly. So that's the magic of Dham, visiting Dham and Shri Prabhupada's Dham. Yeah. Hare Krishna.
Well, and if people are earning money and want a retirement place, why not buy we're selling beautiful property here. And you build a house, a humble house, and you come and retire here in New Vrindavan, where you can go to the temple every day. You don't have to deal with the crazy outside world, but at the same time, there are, stores and everything not far. But there's so many spiritual activities, so many retreats and festivals and spiritual service here. So the more people that want, when they retire, to do more service, New Vrindavan's an ideal place.
Thank you, Mataji. One will definitely keep that in mind.
Yes, good.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna Mataji, Dandavat Pranam. All goes to Sri Prabhupada.
Hare
It was
Krishna.
such a nice class. You're reflecting upon the olden days, how Prabhupada adjusted his preaching mission in line with what the audience was. Krishna also says that in Bhagavad Gita, chapter 3, that giving the example of Janak Maharaj, that King Janaka, that he engaged everybody in their respective ways, and thereby everybody was the Krishna conscious in different degrees, though. The same way Prabhupada also. Looking at the current situation and reflecting upon how it compares with the olden days when you preached Prabhupada under Prabhupada. So it amazes me how you could build temples with preaching with the Lakshmi, with the money from the preaching. So that time it was new. You were all of you were new, and so what was the secret? Of course, Prabhupada was there. Like to sell books and amass the money to build buy a temple, that would be quite a tall order. So how could you do that? Could you please enlighten us a little bit? That would be nice.
Well, you have to understand there weren't even books then. There was periodically a Back to Godhead magazine. It's just Prabhupada's presence and Prabhupada's lectures, and the people that lived with Srila Prabhupada were generally the people starting the temples, and they were also very new. It just grew very slowly and very organically. It wasn't like there was money. We didn't have money. We didn't even have saris in the beginning, at least in Hawaii we didn't. You hear about, well, even Radhanath Maharaj, even years later when New Vrindavan was growing, the palace was here already. He went to Mumbai, and they lived in the temple that they have now, but it was a school and an orphanage, and they had one small room, and they would get 2 or 3 people at their class. Things sometimes start off very, very simple and organic, but they just kept going. And now Chowpatty is just a booming, amazing community. They're just following in Prabhupada's footsteps.
Do you think at that time the people in general in America were more religious than they are now?
I wouldn't say they were. I mean, things were definitely different, but I think an expert preacher is able to tune in. You see people, like I was listening to a class of Keshava Maharaj yesterday, and he's very much in tune with the young people that he's preaching to. And Radhanath Maharaj also, he's preaching all over the world, and movie stars to politicians, simple yoga groups. You just have to become experts at and humble and fit in with know who you're talking to, time, place, and circumstance. It's not that something that can't be done. It's something that can't be done by somebody now. A small group. You start off with Krishna's behind the whole thing. He's the one. Prabhupada said that in his prayers in the Boston Harbor. My dear Lord, I don't know why you've brought me here to this place where nobody knows you as Krishna. How will they understand my words? But if you empower my words, then they can be saved. If it's your desire, right? I mean, Krishna's in the mix. It's not that we're so great. And Prabhupada was doing his service on behalf of the disciplic succession and the Lord. He wasn't saying, oh, I know all this knowledge and now I'm going to go pick all these people up and try and make them Krishna conscious. No, Krishna, it's your ball game. You empower me as you like. If you want to make me a success, if you want to make me a failure, it's up to you. I'm your puppet. Make me dance. Make me dance, Lord, make me dance as you like. Right? I mean, that's the prayer. That was Prabhupada's mood. And that was one of the things that attracted these young people. It's not that he came to be, that he was better than them and he was going to teach them. He came in a very humble way. You don't know, the young people at that time, they weren't having the opinion of adults. They didn't want a lot to do with people over 30. So for someone of his age to come into the midst of these young people, he had a certain demeanor and humility. And they learned according to what they wanted he didn't force himself that he was so knowledgeable and why aren't they listening to him? And, he didn't have that false ego. And that's why he was accepted by the young people. Neither did he compromise his ways. Oh, you guys are all smoking cigarettes, so let me smoke cigarettes to be with you, friends with you guys, so I can teach you. Prabhupada didn't do that. He kept his extremely high standard, which gave them the appreciation and respect for him. But at the same time, he had the humility that was genuine. That he was just like, he signed his letters, your ever well-wisher. You felt he was your ever well-wisher. He had your best interest. And he was going to show you what would help you become free from the suffering you're in.
Yes, Mataji.
All right, 8:30 almost. I like talking about Prabhupada because I think if people saw the person, Prabhupada, how he lived, how he did things, I think it's a good, perfect example for us to try and structure our own life. Because what's around us is so many cocky, puffed up people that think they know so much and they're going to be the authority. It's just like a disease of the Kali Yuga. Everyone wants to be number one and the one who knows everything and tells everyone what to do. But Prabhupada's example, he was doing the same thing, but not in the way it's being done by the masses. Like Prahlad Maharaj said in the verse, he was following the masses. Where's the verse? Because my association with material desires one after another, I was gradually falling into a blind well full of snakes, following the general populace. I mean, that's people have no choice. They're following the general populace. They're getting their ideas on how to be by what's being given to them through the media, through other associations in the schools, and it's producing a certain caliber of people. And when you find somebody that wants to surrender, it's generally that they are really against the general populace way of thinking. You hear them say, oh yeah, I figured that. I figured we shouldn't be killing animals. I figured we should, I don't ever eat meat. I figured we should do things a certain way, that we should, it's like, because those are the things that aren't taught. Look at some of our political leaders. They're the most arrogant, obnoxious, immoral people. And that's a leader of a country. And how'd they get voted? In America, they get voted because the other people that are voting, many of them have that same mentality. Yeah, we're the best. We're the Americans. We can do, we're cool. We're going to show them how to do it. Obnoxious people. And that's the general populace. But is that right? No. It's not even according to their own scriptures. It's not following. Look at what's coming up. Thanksgiving, Christmas. Christmas is the birth of Christ. Do we see that anywhere? No. we see nothing but rampant materialism and, yeah, let's have a party. I'm going to get drunk. We're going to have turkey or pig or horrible. Sometimes I try and watch cooking shows, just, I don't know, my Maya, I guess. I do learn some things, but some of them you just can't watch because they're eating the most abominable things. And everyone thinks it's normal. It's like, what? I don't even want to say what they're eating. It's just like scary that people can think that that's what they should eat. They're not in a poor country where there's nothing else. They're not in Siberia where there's nothing that grows. They're in America or in the UK where there's so much money and so much produce. But they're just, Prabhupada said one time, this is a killing society. Simply killing. It's true. It's horrible. So we take our baby steps. We do the best we can. We give up things that are not favorable to our surrendering to Krishna. If we stay at 200 rupees throughout our life, at least that's something. Krishna reciprocates 200 rupees. Maybe in our next life we'll get to 300 rupees. But, we just try and do our best and see how Krishna helps us. Okay, 2:30, 8:35. And I will be going to California mid-December. So I think I have one more class, and then I will not see you until the spring when I'm back in New Vrindavan.
Okay. Yes, Mataji. Yeah, we will miss you a lot. But anybody have any question or comments, please ask. Otherwise, we can end up the call here.
Hare Krishna, Mother Jayashri, thank you for your wonderful and nectarine class always. It helps us to revive ourselves. And very happy to hear you. Thank you, Mataji. Hare Krishna.
Thank you, Prabhu. Thank you for being so steady in your service with your good wife.
Yeah, and as you was mentioning about Chowpatty temple, it's blooming so nicely. That last week we were in India, and while coming back to US, we just visited like at Chayan Aarti time, and the temple was full of the devotees. So at the night time, it was like I was wondering how this night time also here very few devotees, right? 3-4 devotees are here in the temple, but in Chowpatty temple, the all temple was full of the devotees, and they were singing kirtan.
Nice.
So it was wonderful, Mataji. So
Very
all the glories to Guru Maharaj and devotees who are preaching there.
Yes.
And the deities, of course, those are so most beautiful deities too.
Yes.
Gopinath. Yeah.
I heard the story Radhanath Maharaj was saying, and I can't remember, you might know, that Radha Gopinath were deities that they just bought for some temporary program years ago that they were doing. It wasn't that they had planned, gone through all this, gone to Jaipur and planned these particular deities, but those deities were gotten for some particular outreach program or something that they had. Do you remember?
No, Mataji.
I was surprised because Radhanath Maharaj is very particular about deities. I know he had the deity of Prabhupada changed at the Chowpatty temple. The first one they had, because we were going there then, the first one they had was too, I don't want to say serious, but kind of, he had a certain mood, and Maharaj was not so favorable, and he had the deity changed.
Yeah, that I know, Mataji. But
yeah, and Radha Gopinath came, and I was surprised when I heard him tell the story that I was happy that they got those deities, but that he liked them enough to install them.
Yes. That I don't know, Mataji. Yeah.
Yeah.
But yeah, the overall temple was so beautiful, and the jasmine flowers garland were there. So all the temple was full of fragrance of jasmine flowers.
Oh,
It
yes.
was so beautiful.
Whenever you come, you always bring the beautiful jasmine, and the temple always smells like jasmine.
Yes, I try, Mataji.
You do. Thank you for that.
Yes,
And
thank
then
you.
I always get one, and then my house smells like jasmine.
Yeah.
And then I sleep with one.
Yes. So beautiful fragrance.
So beautiful.
Yeah.
All right. Have a good day, and we will see you.
Mataji, thank
you
you.
so much, everyone.
You did 2 verses, right, Mataji?
Hare
Total.
Krishna.
I did. I'm sorry. I just
No,
when I
that's
saw
fine.
the verse,
Yeah.
that verse is a famous verse, and it was so significant.
Yes, yes. So just to tell the tomorrow speaker. So I just wanted to confirm. Thank you, Mataji. Hare Krishna.
Okay. Hare Krishna.
वाञ्छकल्पतरुभ्यश्च कृपासिन्धुभ्यश्च पतितानां पावनेभ्यो वैष्णवेभ्यो नमो नमः अनन्तकोटि वैष्णव
की जय।
आचार्य श्री हरिदास ठाकुर की जय।
Jai.
ग्रंथ श्रीमद् भागवतम की जय। श्री
जय।
हर ग्रेस जय श्री माता जी की जय।
जय।
थैंक यू सो मच माता जी। हरे कृष्णा।
Hare Krishna.
Thank you.
Hare Krishna.
I've